about leaving. At this time, the 911 call came in. It's all kind of building to something.
So you're talking to her on the morning of December 26th?
Yes.
Did you ever ask her, well, if you were driving to Las Vegas on the afternoon of December 24th, whatever happened? Where'd you guys go?
I did.
So tell the jury then what you asked her and what she said.
I started to ask her about the trip to Vegas or that kind of thing, and she said that they started out and went up to Monroe and had kind of a convoluted story about how they got there, and it's kind of a start and stop type of a story that didn't really make a lot of sense. And I'm no Magellan, but I know you don't go to Las Vegas via Monroe, and so I felt that was suspicious too. And she was just kind of evasive about committing to any one set of facts in that just a brief conversation that we were having as far as her trip to Las Vegas.
She say at all where in the trips towards Monroe or wherever, where they were spending the night or where they were sleeping or where they were eating right now?
Yeah, and I tried to address that because I was suspicious enough about her story, maybe not so much her, but about her story that wasn't true, that I started asking her time frame questions about did you get gas? Where did you guys stay? What hotel were you staying at in Las Vegas? Those type of things, to see things that if we needed to go back later, we could prove or disprove as far as what her story meant.
And how would you go back later and prove or disprove things like that?
Well, through cell phone records, credit card records, video, those kind of things. Calling a Las Vegas hotel to see if they had a reservation, when they scheduled that reservation, things like that.
Is she able to give you direct answers as to those questions about where they stayed, where they got gas and things like that?
Some of it she was, and others it was kind of rambling, and she would apologize a lot for not being able to recall exactly what had happened. She mentioned that they came back to the home at one point to retrieve some fruit that they left off on the counter.
Did she mention when it was that they'd come back to the home to get the fruit? Which day?
If I recall right, it was on Christmas Eve evening when they returned back.
Did she ever indicate to you in this portion of the conversation that she'd come back any other times other than that time on Christmas Eve evening to get the fruit?
I don't recall in that initial statement, but later she did.
The reason I asked that, did you ask her at all whether when they came back, whether she had contact with her parents?
I did ask that.
And how did you ask and what did she say?
I think I asked just that. I said, did you see your parents at that point? And she said no. They just went to the trailer, got the fruit, and left.
And that would have been the evening of Christmas Eve?
That's the way I understood it as it was told to me.
Did you ask her at all whether she had contact with her parents on Christmas Day?
At some point I did. I don't know if it was in that initial conversation, but I asked if they'd made a phone call to say Merry Christmas or those type of things, check in with the family, let them know, we've made it this far, we're staying the night, then we're driving on in the morning, that type of thing, and she said no.
Did you ask her why she wouldn't call her parents on Christmas Day?
I don't know if I directly asked her that, but I think that came across in my questioning. Why wouldn't you do that? Or it seemed kind of obvious to maybe do it.
Do you recall what her answer was?
She said that they didn't call. She said that they didn't call. And I can't remember at that point or later in the conversation she mentioned that they were Christmas Eve type of family, and that Christmas was a child's or a kid's holiday, and they don't really celebrate Christmas that much.
Is that in reference to on Christmas Day itself as opposed to Christmas Eve?
Correct.
I'm sorry if you mentioned this and I missed it. Did she actually tell you where they were spending the night, where they were sleeping?
She did. She said that they took some naps along the side of the road and slept in the car, or the truck they were in.
And did she tell you where along, and which road they took naps and slept in the truck?
I'm not sure it came out initially, but eventually I would learn that they went as far south as Kelso along I-5.
So how long is this initial conversation in your car lasted?
About 10 minutes.
And what's Michele Anderson's demeanor throughout the conversation? Is it changing at all?
No.
So at some point, did you decide to take a different approach?
Yeah, I felt that her behavior was suspicious, and although I didn't really know that she was a suspect. I mean, it was hard for me to believe that as a family member she would do something like this. I did feel she was withholding something, that she had information that could help us. So I excused myself from her. I stepped out of my car real quickly, and I got a hold of Sergeant Toner. And I think it was on the Nextel, our phones, the walkie-talkie feature. And I just said to him, I said, I don't know what's going on here, but these two aren't right. Make sure Jake gets a lockdown statement from that guy. Meaning, tell Detective Pavlovich that I want him to get time frame issues, or time frame stamps from Joe McEnroe, so we can either prove or disprove what these two are saying.
When you made the statement to Detective Toner, you said there's something not right, or this is...
I said these two aren't right.
What did you mean by that?
Their behavior. Their behavior was not consistent with the surroundings.
Now, you get out of the car, how far away did you get from the car?
I didn't think I closed my door. I think I stepped forward to my door just enough that I wasn't necessarily breaking my relationship or my contact with Michele, but that she couldn't overhear what I was saying.
And she's still inside the car?
Yes.
Engine running?
I believe it was, because it was...
And the heat on?
Yeah, that's what I recall.
So you had that conversation with Sergeant Toner, and what did you decide to do then?
Because I want to do the same thing with Michele. I wanted to lock down where she's been and things that we can either prove or disprove. I asked her if she'd mind if I took a tape-recorded conversation, or if I tape-recorded our conversation, and she said that would be fine. So I brought out a tape recorder, and that's what I did.
And that tape-recorded conversation took place at that point where?
In the front seat of my car.
State's Exhibit 73 is marked for identification only.
Let me ask you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit number 73. I might ask you if you can identify what that is.
I can.
Pardon me?
I can.
And tell the jury then, what do you recognize that to be?
This is a digital copy of the audio statement of Michele Anderson on the 26th.
And have you had a chance to listen to that digital copy?
Several times.
And does it contain, how many, you said you used a cassette player?
Yep. Yes.
How many cassette tapes did you end up using with respect to this interview with Michele Anderson?
2.5. So 3 tapes total.
And are all 2.5 or so, is it 3 tapes? Are those recordings on this disc?
Yes.
And as far as you know, is this a fair and accurate copy of the recording you made on the cassette player on December 26, 2007?
Yes.
Can I say what offer was been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 73?
Any objection to 73 other than those previously noted?
Subject to those previously noted.
With that understanding, 73 is admitted. Thank you.
And during the course of once the interview with Michele Anderson was completed, at some later point, I don't mean that same day, but either days or 4 weeks later, do you know whether the interview that you had with Michele Anderson was transcribed?
It was.
And have you had a chance to review that transcript?
I have.
And to the best of your knowledge, is that transcript a fair and accurate copy of, or a verbatim copy of the conversation you had with Michele Anderson?
It is. There's some words that are unintelligible, but for the most part, it is very accurate.
State's Exhibit 74 is marked for identification only.
My hand you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 74. I'll ask you if you recognize what State's Exhibit 74 for identification is.
I do.
What do you recognize it to be?
It's the 112 transcript of the conversation that we had with Michele Anderson on the 26th.
And you recall, just roughly speaking, how the total length of that conversation is reflected on the recording Exhibit 73 and in the transcript Exhibit 74?
I think it's a little over 2 hours.
Now, the state would have offered with remark of identification. State's exhibit number 70.
And Your Honor, as long as they're just for illustrative purposes and the jury doesn't take them back to the jury.
And that would be my understanding of the rationale for its use, correct, counsel?
It is, although that may be an issue we want to take up, but for current purposes now, illustrative purposes, it's fine.
All right, then it would be admitted for illustrative purposes, and I gather you've got copies for each one of the juries?
I do.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you're receiving a copy of the transcript as a tool to assist you in listening to the interview itself, the audio recording. Just to forewarn you, the transcripts will be collected after you listen to like that, because they will be collected later on. If you want to make separate notations, make those notations in your notebooks. The other thing I would forewarn you about is there's a natural tendency to sort of read ahead, if you will. Please resist the temptation to do that. Again, the evidence that is admitted into evidence is the audio recording itself. This is just intended to help you listen to that recording. So again, please don't read ahead, if you will. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. And along those lines, as we listen to the recording, could you then, for us, describe sort of Michele Anderson's voice over the course of this recording, whether it's soft-spoken, faint, light, that kind of thing?
As I mentioned before, she kind of starts off soft-spoken. Her sentences kind of tail off to where you can't understand what she's trying to finish the sentence with. But after a while, she becomes more, I don't know, has a bolder voice.
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. I think the jury would listen to themselves and determine what her tone of voice is.
I'm inclined to sustain the objection, Mr. O'Toole. If you want to ask a different question, go right ahead.
Well, then let me ask you, just more generally than just her voice, her demeanor over the course of the taped interview, things that wouldn't show up, for example, on a transcript, whether her demeanor changed or shifted over the course of the interview.
It did. She went from kind of timid to she was more assertive. She was still apologetic to certain things, and as you'll hear, she apologized, had an apologetic tone to several statements, but she was more direct as the tape went on.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I need some glasses. I got them in the jury room.
Okay. Well, Mr. O'Toole, maybe what we should do is just take the morning recess, because that way perhaps we can do the entire recording in one sitting. So that might make sense.
Thank you.
That sounds fine.
All right, so let's take the morning recess just a little bit early. Again, please don't discuss the case amongst yourselves or do any research and leave your notepads on the chairs. Thank you, folks.